Hey everyone, it's Tatsu. Sorry for the delay. I am trying to hook up Periscope and YouTube, and well, it's just not working out today. So I will just continue to stream right here on Facebook. So thanks for Mary for having me on. And I thought I'd talk more about the fourth industrial revolution, and perhaps I could bring up some web pages today, since we have that at our disposal. And so, fourth industrial revolution. And I'm going to focus a bit on the aspects of the blockchain and why I think it's really important for us to pay attention to it and understand it. So I'm happy to answer questions regarding blockchain and, well, cryptocurrencies and what is happening there. So, okay, I could let's see if I could put this in studio mode and bring up a Chrome capture. Kind of doing this on the fly. So, fourth industrial revolution. There we go. Okay, sorry. I lost connection there for a moment. So let's switch out. I'm back. Okay, sorry about that, folks. So OBS crashed on me. Oh man, it never ends. So the fourth industrial revolution, we can conceive of this from the perspective of history. And, history is something I try to talk about as much as I can, because history is not only a sequence of events, but it's actually the sort of consolidated wisdom and knowledge of how we work as individuals and how we collectively bond together as societies. And if you study history, then you understand the values of the individuals in those societies, and you actually understand what's going on today. And although that seems a little metaphysical, that's what history really is, right? So, from the perspective of all the industrial revolutions, the first one, steam power; the second one, electricity, turn of the century; and the third, the digital revolution. And they would say, the personal computer, the internet, web 1.0 and 2.0. And as you see, we're going to get into concepts of web 3.0 pretty soon. That's kind of where it gets into blockchain. And now the fourth industrial revolution are topics such as robotics and physical automation, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, quantum computing, biotech, and, well, I would consider genetic engineering foremost there. IoTA, Internet of Things, 3D printing to some extent, and driverless vehicles. So there has been a book about it, and it was written by the head executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. And I pay attention to the World Economic Forum, so much so that I've ordered it in my Facebook feed to be the first thing to show up, right? So I'm just going to take a look at the stream here and take this brief opportunity, to share this out. So All right. This is fun stuff. I haven't streamed from home lately. It's kind of nice. It's pretty. It's a little more comfortable than streaming from the car. All right. Any good groups I can share this out to? Local burning crowds. Yeah, sure. Why not? So, all right. I don't know how you guys are enjoying the various live streams from the Green Fire review page today. You know, I'm pretty busy today, so I haven't been able to tune in. But I noticed the person before Gerard, who was prior to me, I think his name was Bob, was talking about monetary policy and the role of central banks, and this does play a large part into that. So it's a good follow-up for that talk, I would say. Now, I could go back to the web and let's see, I just want to pull up this PDF, Fourth Industrial Revolution, Amazon, WEF. Let's see what have. Okay, the fourth. So let's go back to the web. Fourth Industrial Revolution, what it means, how to respond, and so this does remind me a bit of the California utopians of the 1960s and 70s. And it also reminds me of how what seemed to be at the time innovative technologies such as the invention of J. Forrester's system dynamics caused a, well, not a speculation, but it reawakened an idea amongst the aristocrats, the technocrats, the intelligentsia, the people amongst the people, world leaders, right, who attend these types of conferences, that these new innovations, shall we say, will deliver a freer, and in the case of the California utopians, a decentralized network, which would actually replace governments itself. And so it would liberate the individual to pursue their own individual desires in the realm of cyberspace. And some of this has sort of entered back in, I would say, in the narrative around, let's say, the World Economic Forum's discussions around, say, blockchain technology. So this isn't exactly the PDF I wanted to look at, but so I'm going to switch back to me while I take a look, because I actually posted this on my own Facebook wall, and I'm going to take a look at that now. So, all right, a couple of more shares here, and yeah, I hope everyone's enjoying their Saturday afternoon, day before Super Bowl. I got to say that up here, I'm in Boston this weekend, that there isn't the usual amount of excitement or enthusiasm around the Patriots. Maybe that's just I'm not out enough, but it's so the case that I'm not seeing a lot of signs around, Pats and what could be Tom Brady's like greatest achievement yet, but I don't know. It just seems like a Super Bowl that's no one's excited about in New York, certainly. All right. So I'm trying to get through my Facebook wall. It's pretty slow. Is that it? Okay, no, that's Amazon and Warren Buffett teaming up for... Okay, here we go. I think I found it. So let's go back to the web, and I'll put this up for you. Harnessing the fourth industrial revolution for life on land towards a bioeconomy that is inclusive, right? Oh dear. Oh, yes, it's still kind of loading. Sorry. Come on. Come on in. There you go. So, and if you skim through this 24-page PDF, here's some photos stolen from the internet around the environment. So a lot of this paper, talks about biodiversity. It makes the claim that species are declining, and all of this, shall we say, forest tree cutting is destroying habitat for animals, and that's true. It's not necessarily true that the destruction of forest to grow grains is a bad thing for, let's say, the CO2 thing, because you're basically substituting grasses for trees. So it should be all right. So a new bioeconomies powered by the fourth industrial revolution, and so it's kind of a strange synthesis, weaving, braiding of concepts and assets, right? So I would say the technologies are mechanisms in where we can leverage the sort of biological realities that we are in new novel ways. So plants, next to that, synthetic biology, reptiles, artificial intelligence, birds, nanotech, insects, DNA editing, and that's important for this paper. Fishes and robotics, right? So, could the Amazon giant monkey frog contribute to solving this crisis? The frog secretes a liquid of peptides that has been historically used by indigenous communities in the Amazon basin. Their increased stamina and alertness prompts pharmacological studies that have identified these frogs as a store of bioactive compounds. Well, I mean, that's not exactly very original, is it? But what they intend to do, and let me see if I can get to the highlights here. So, all right. So, kind of like a seed bank, they want to encapsulate all of life's genetic code structures in its entirety into a bank. And so step number 1, sequence a map all assets, biological, biometric, and traditional knowledge. Trace the space-time provenance and traceability of assets. Register, that's very interesting. I'm sure your eyebrows raised at that. Register land in traditional indigenous communities. So instead of notice that the first stage here is to register them as assets instead of sort of really truly appreciating and learning and cooperating with them. It's like, let's just control this, right? So they know something we don't, because we seem to keep destroying the planet, and these natives, indigenous people in the Amazon basin seem to know what they're doing. So let's manage them, because we're so good at it. I mean, you see how messed up that premise is, right? So AI bundle, number 6, maximize economic and conservation real option value of assets, codify rights and obligations, and so there's something called a smart contract per asset here. And this, what this whole sequence is basically is a blockchain. So once you get the first row and the second row, I would say is sort of the instantiation of the structure of the blockchain and the logic contained within, and that's called a smart contract. And so the third line is actually using the blockchain, right? And so first thing, search. It's a very obvious function whenever you set up any kind of computer program, shall we say, or a database, right? Because that's kind of what this is. And other terms you should get familiar with in terms of what alternative names. Blockchain can be called something like hyperledger, distributed ledger. A lot of people like to say it's a decentralized journal and or node-based distributed journal, right? So these are all the same thing. And yeah, it's the backing store behind the technology, whatever it is, right? And the first, thing that comes to mind is Bitcoin or Bitcoin or whatever you want to call it. And there are hundreds of, maybe thousands of cryptocurrencies now, but we'll see in a moment that the reach, the purpose of blockchains can go much further than cryptocurrencies. And I know a lot of you are very interested in that, and it's sort of the early hue and cry of the cryptocurrency, maybe anarcho-capitalists who want to destabilize to some extent, or protest, or replace, central banks and institutions like the IMF and World Bank. And while those people may have a good idea, I think it's kind of a naive one. And the whole point of this talk is to get you up to speed to recognize, maybe you know something about this, but I've been studying this a little bit more, and I'd say the position of a person who believes that the cryptocurrency revolution is going to liberate us from the yoke and chain of central banks is kind of naive, and I'll tell you why in a moment. So, going on with this diagram, exchange and pay. So the whole purpose, of course, anything transactional can occur and be registered and recorded in a blockchain, and it's quote unquote secure. And that's true. There's never been a incident where the blockchain itself was compromised. And literally the only way you can do that is to do something called a fork. And in the programmer parlance, where I'm, my space, that means to take the existing code base, duplicate it, and you have two separate lines of development. And so you can do that with a blockchain. And that's actually occurred with something called Bitcoin Cash. And that actually turns out to be kind of a scam. But all right, so you can crowdfund. So that's the hot thing. And Vuwable is getting into this. So, and then expose SDKs and APIs to enable innovation. All right. So the authors of the Earth Bank of Codes, again written by the executive chairman of the World Economic Forum himself, sequence and map all genetic sequences, right? Biomimetic assets, traditional knowledge in the Amazon. Trace them. Follow the path of what their assets in space and time have been. So, and then you register this sort of knowledge along with the community lands on a system compatible with ABC. This will be done in partnership with governments and result in governments realizing and supporting the economic, environmental, and social benefits that ABC will bring to local communities in the jurisdiction. So, on one hand, it sounds really good to the uninitiated, but probably to you, you're familiar with schemes like sustainable development and the lie, the fraud, and the power grab that it is, and I suppose if you understand that money, fiat currency has always been in the control of the oligarchical bankers, then you understand also that they've been always one step ahead of you, two steps, and they are preparing themselves for a post-fiat currency world. And so cryptocurrency is kind of one, I would say it's a stepping stone to that. And what really matters in the end is matter. And so that's land and the right to who gets to control it. And so I would say they're using a technological self-certification to achieve their end goals, right? It's basically, it's always control, right? You learned this from James Corbett and others, and this is how it works, all right? This is the new model, and this is something not even Corbett himself has talked about. He's had conversations around blockchain and crypto, but I believe that I think I understand, and I actually see a lot of fraud in the marketplace. So, all right, so that's how that works, and I'm going to switch back to me. I'm going to check out the comments. So yeah, so I might be able to offer a more tech-heavy analysis of blockchains and crypto. I can tell you that there are already applications out in the market that, with some degree of medium barrier to entry, let's say, for the ordinary end computer user or mobile device user, and that there are things like the decentralized version of Twitter. There are the decentralized versions of Facebook. There are the decentralized versions of Uber, and so on and so on and so on. There's decentralized banking. Oh, that's really interesting. All right, so let's go to that. So if you, let me see if that's the right. All right, so this is the R3 consortium. R3 is building a new operating system for financial markets with our distributed ledger blockchain platform, Corda. We'd like you to be a part of it. And R3 is a banking consortium. It consists of the 50 or so of the world's largest banks. And I can tell you, in 2017, they conducted their own experiments, and they're working out the kinks, and so there are a number of competing in the financial and banking industries. Blockchain tends to be referred to as hyperledger, okay, and so, or distributed ledger, DLT or hyperledger. DLT meaning distributed ledger technology, right? It's just a fancy term for blockchain that's sort of quote unquote ready for enterprise, right? And so Corda is their name for. How come I can't? There you go. So Corda.net, it's a blockchain, and it's an app built on blockchain, just like, I wouldn't say, I mean, Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies, you can more generically think of them as applications for the blockchain, right? So it's the more fundamental way to think about Bitcoin or any other coin, altcoin, is to think of them as a blockchain application, right? And what does it do? Well, it's, in the case of Bitcoin, the concept of blockchain and value, some unit of value, was created together in the original 9-page Satoshi white paper, right? And so now they realize, oh, well, if we build a little more logic into it, we can build contractual obligations for the buyer and seller, right? whether you're shipping money across nation borders or the like. And maybe this is the way banking does business in the future. And that's very true. And I would say you shouldn't be scared of that. It's going to happen. And in fact, there are banks here's the upside, let's say. So you might be predisposed to distrust the power and be fearful, not distrust, but be fearful of the power that large banks have. And that's true. It's appropriate. It's not unreasonable. But at the same time, I would say banks operate on not a moral principle. They operate on, capitalist values. And in essence, capitalism, people who are capitalist believe that it's the most fair system that we have. It's not fair ipso facto, but compared to communism, straight up socialism, neo-Marxist ideologies, and economic and societal philosophies emerging from those concepts, it's much better than that. And I would tend to agree. So now a lot of you want to go sort of retrograde, like we should go back to bartering and small communities. But that's actually, strangely enough, I would categorize that as a very conservative position and actually retro. So pulling back, and the solutions in the future are not the past. So, but all right, I'm digressing a little bit in that this talk is about catching you up. So let's continue with that. And so here's actually a benefit. So I would say, whatever you think of the incompetent leaders at the World Economic Forum, and I say they're incompetent because I don't believe anyone is competent enough to decide what the fate of hands for entire societies. I just don't believe anyone's that competent, no matter how many qualifications, accreditations, or education or your intelligence level may be. So, thank you for posting from home. I can't even watch when you're driving. Okay. 43 shares in 6 minutes. Thank you, Will and Mary. So Ellen's in Facebook jail. Okay, so in the case of Latin America and other developing countries, they're extending, let's say, banking mobile apps, and where you can exchange value from someone overseas with a crypto currency, so a token, right? There's a difference between something called a token and a cryptocurrency. A token is a coin, but it has also in it it's an object derived from a coin that has contracts inside. So it has logic inside, right? An application logic layer. And so, okay, this coin moves across the network into a person's phone in India or South America, and they purchase it, right? And they purchase it from somebody in the US. And here's how this, you debit this person's account, you credit that person's account, the values on the blockchain, and then on either end, there is a mechanism that enters it into other ledgers that are probably fiat currency. And so basically it's a very fast, instantaneous, up-to-date Web 3.0 version of Western Union or a wire transfer, or automatic clearinghouse, ACH payment. All these sometimes these payments like overseas take days to clear. And so I would say in this application, it's a win, because you're allowing people in developing countries to enter the market, right? And so that's good. And the whole blockchain thing it's going to be a boom explosion in technology itself. And you'll see, everyone wants to blockchain whatever exists in Web 2.0. And I think it's very interesting. There is a lot of games going on, and you have to know the developers and the players, and watch the markets. They're teaming up with Wall Street for sure. Initial coin offerings are the new IPOs. ICOs are the new IPOs, initial purchase offerings. And so it is a lot like the .com days, right? There's definitely a lot of speculation, and it's not right to dismiss it all as a Ponzi scheme, but some of it is. And so, I wouldn't get into speculating into Bitcoin, quite frankly. You have to the apps that you get yourself involved in, you should know what you're getting into. And just because they claim that, well, we will reward you with cryptocurrency, doesn't mean that you're not enriching like a few players at the grandly, okay? And so you should look at the distribution of the initial coin offering, see who has the most share, and realize, let's take the case of Steemit. Let's say you post a video there or write a blog, and you get upvoted like $3 or $30, and so you think, great. What it is doing is what they're trying to do. The creators of Steemit is generate a market out of thin air, and just like they're creating the currency out of thin air, and all this activity, it is pegged to a US dollar, and so at some point in time they will be able to sort of cash out. And the more their market blows up, then the more that the price increases of their coin compared to in US dollar value, right, for fiat currency. And so this is the what's going on. So they're, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily all that bad. We could get maybe we'll close out here. It's let's see, it's 15:36, and so I'm gonna check out the comments again. Data is the new oil, and it certainly is. And so there, that's a line from Corbett, and I mean the development community recognizes this, and it's like we just want to work with people that, not all of us, but some of us are like, some just want to get rich, and it's like, okay, is that wrong? Not necessarily, given the system that we live in, but it is the case in most societies that very few provide creation of new innovations and spur economic growth. It's probably like 1%, and it's kind of like the case, and we see that, it's like 0.1% own all the wealth in the United States, and that is bad. Okay, there's no doubt about that. And so what's going to happen is you have the consolidation of wealth with the 0.1%. I don't really even have to go into this, but it's the corruption, and it starts the decline of society, in where the perceived proportion or distribution of wealth is seen as grossly unfair, and it is. And so the rich have a problem, and they need to deal with it, and they're pretty slow going about it. So the question then becomes, well, what's fair? And in natural law, and when I say natural law, I'm saying phenomena that occur in nature and is biological, and then also, is human conceptually speaking, metaphysically. There's something called the Pareto distribution. There's a formula, devised long ago, 200 years or something like this by an Italian mathematician. And it said, well, it's the 80-20 rule, but not as you know it. It's actually the 20-80 rule. And, 20%, given the span of all civilizations through time, it works out in that 20% of the population control 80% of the wealth. And so you might argue, well, that's not fair. Well, that's the way it worked out. And I guess, as we're learning, all civilizations fall and born. And so just like you are born and you will die, so do civilizations. And so the balance is to figure out what sustains a society best for the longest term possible. And so it seems to me that the more you veer away from the Pareto distribution, and in either regard, where there's a concentration of wealth or there's an equitable distribution of wealth, that is bad. And so let's take the case of communism. It says that all people should have the same amount of resources, no matter, and it's kind of an egalitarian kind of concept, and so I guess I'm not agreeing with that, because what happens when you flatten the landscape of people's earnings is that you don't have earnings. You have, what the World Economic Forum is advocating for, and this is kind of a crazy way, and where the left and right kind of collide after going full circle, is that in an egalitarian society where everyone has something like a basic universal income, or a neo-Marxist society where you're just given what you're given and that's it, no more, no less, people have no incentive to work or innovate or develop further technologies. And so I'd say we have to balance, somewhere between, this 1% controlling all the wealth and 100% controlling all the wealth. What we see that kind of works out naturally over this time span of many civilizations, again, is 20-80. And maybe that's the right balance. I don't know. So you can split hairs, but it's somewhere in between those numbers. So I hope that makes sense. All right. So okay. Too risky for amateurs. Yes. Sicily is a fast wire. Yeah. Follow the crypto, just another name for control. Well, yes and no. Thanks, Chris. How you doing? Yeah, it's good to see you guys here. So, I thought cryptocurrency was a way to bypass bankers. Well, that's the concern at some. The people at the World Economic Forum and the IMF and World Bank don't exactly understand this stuff, and I think politicians are slowly changing their minds. It's like, oh, this is just a way to buy drugs on the internet, on the dark web, and that's true. But there's a lot of ways to money launder. Cryptocurrency may be a convenient way to do it, but it's also a convenient way to do lots of things. And so the basis is that it's a trustless way to do it. There's no trust involved. And so within every transaction, whether you hand someone a dollar bill or you hand them a physical object or render services, there's trust involved. And if you're not there like physically in the same room to exchange value, then it has to be conducted by a third party intermediary. And so, yeah, so you have eBay, and it's pretty amazing that you can order something on eBay from halfway around the world, and it shows up, and you have it, and they agree to accept your US dollar in exchange. It's a kind of a miracle. But blockchain is the next evolution of that, in where you don't have to trust the broker, which is eBay itself and PayPal. You just trust the blockchain. So because of the nature of its decentralization and transparency and immutable characteristics, so nothing on the blockchain can ever be altered. So in programming and in the actual dictionary meaning of the word immutable, it means it cannot be changed. So not mutable, immutable, right? So Gerard, so we make a collective growth and innovation the incentive. What we do, we love, we do it for free. We have to change how we raise kids to be more collective focused than wealth focused. So, yeah, I would, say we there's, if you have a family, there's a lot of things you can think about in terms of raising your kids properly. And it has nothing to do with what we're talking today. And I think in the future, they talk about kids in a sort of fourth industrial revolution. And personally, I believe, so they say like knowledge is dead, and that's kind of a Nietzschean proposition, right? Like God is dead. And so because the robots or the computers can do the knowledge thing so much better than us, right? We can just look up things on websites or maybe Wikipedia at a couple keystrokes away. And so while you need some knowledge to instantiate your intelligence and thus your stature in society, what automation and these new technologies kind of make it less, make that part easier, right? The acquirement of knowledge is so easy at the moment. And so I think what we need to do actually is teach kids and ourselves the ability to learn about learning itself. And so that's kind of meta, but the way to unlock your potential is to like seriously understand how your neurology works, and understand that. And maybe this motivational part will be the last part, because it is 3:46, so I'm going to wrap this up. So I'll just give an example in where achievement for the individual, and I would say the achievements of individuals do benefit society. So, I guess we live in Western society, and I think we should all agree that, the individual is paramount. We're definitely past identity politics. We don't believe in group identity as the foremost paramount object in that is sacred, right? And so when it comes to, you can see this in sports and physical accomplishments over the long span of time, and we'll compress that to modern sports. And let me just look up. So first, because I'm kind of curious. Come on up. All right, so I'm bringing up 60 years ago, a man broke for the first time in history the 4-minute mile. And prior to this time in history, the medical establishment believed that a 4-minute mile was impossible. Okay, they believed even if a man could possibly break 4 minutes, that his heart would explode. That he would die in trying to do so. You know, if he did succeed, he would die. And so, well, if you die before you finish the finish line, get to the finish line, well, then you won't make it. So, for many decades or even centuries, the 4-minute mile was a technical impossibility. But we know that to be not true. You know, people break sub 9.3 second 100 meter dashes, and the physical potential of human beings seems to keep growing, right? And we realize that potential, but you can't do that unless you actually believe that you can do it. And so I would say just don't say no, that is an impossibility. And so, you know, humans will continue to evolve biologically, but also psychologically in a manner that unlocks our potential. And so even just changing your mindset around the possibilities around you can unlock the ability to grow, and thus be more of a benefit to society. And I would say, you know, for me, I try to live and strive to that ideal. And, you know, if I told you a year ago that I would be knowledgeable about a wide variety of subjects, that I would actually be speaking to people on a live stream, I would laugh. And but the moment I said, well, maybe I should try it, you know, take that tentative step, turn that camera on, it became a possibility. But I had to change my mind first. And, well, I'm pretty happy with my growth to date. I think I've taken a journey that was worth my time, and I've been able to share that with others, you know, those willing to listen. And it's a nice community. So maybe we'll continue to grow. And so that's all there is. And I hope you enjoyed that. I hope if you have questions about blockchain or fourth industrial revolution, you can ask me. But you know, you can do the research too. It's all widely available. And that's it. I gotta run out and do a photo shoot. In terms of Vuwable, so the crowd fundraising isn't doing that great, and so we've had to kind of re-incentivize our financial goals, refactor it in terms of like where we're going to go seek funding. Now I can tell you that the blockchain stuff looks pretty good, but we need to do it in a way that's proper, honest, and so forth. But you know, anything that you can contribute to this platform will be used wisely. And we haven't even collected any money yet. And so it's of course it's only been 1 month, and there's another month of the campaign left, and so we have to update the Indiegogo page to inform you of our progress, and we'll do that shortly. So I think, yeah, just keep spreading the word, and we'll have other avenues that we'll be talking about soon to hopefully get this project off the ground. So we're continuing to work diligently on the platform. It's really hard to keep up. The the amount of development, new innovations that affect our business model, it's kind of mind-blowing. So it's like every day is just, you know, well, it's like my tech job, because I mean, my technology work, it's like you're forced to learn new things every day, basically. So it does keep you sharp. So all right. All right. So thanks again, and we'll catch you soon. And give Vuwable a like on our Facebook and YouTube channels, and of course spread our Indiegogo campaign around as much as you can. We appreciate it, and we want it to be a benefit to you, your family and friends, and hopefully revivify society by conversation, forthright discussion, and spreading knowledge and innovation all the meanwhile. So, all right, that's it. Thank you so much, guys. I'll talk to you soon.